Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Should be yet another great late night conversation here tonight. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We're going to have yet another amazing late night conversation. Not as late as usual, but we're closing out the month of February with yet another chat. So should be good. Should be good stuff. So, yeah, I guess I'll put on the opening music and we'll chat.
The American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
All right, folks. It is once again time for us to be streaming here. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. But for those of you that are new to this program, not familiar necessarily with the way we do things, the way we do things here is that I give you all my opening remarks. And as I'm doing my opening remarks, I'm writing down or taking note of your super chat questions, your Rumble rant questions, your Rockfin tip questions, your comments, your things that you want me to react to. You are providing those while I am giving my opening remarks. Then from there, after that, we do a roll call. We find out who is on the other side of the camera, who's watching. It's always a lot of fun to do that. Always a great crowd of folks that are watching. And then after that, I answer your questions for the rest of the show. The rest of the show is just me answering your questions after that. You all make the second half of the show what it is. You all do it. It is your input, your comments, your questions, your getting me talking that makes the second half of the show the beauty that it always is. We are a community here. This is not just me talking, right? If I just wanted to film myself talking, I would film it and then upload afterwards. But it's me engaging with all of you, talking to my audience, interacting with you, reacting to you, bouncing ideas off of you, hearing your thoughts, seeing the chat go by as we engage every night. That is what makes these streams very, very beautiful. So because of that, because of that, I would encourage you to use your power. Use your power responsibly. Give me something to talk about in the second half of our program. Give me something to react to. That's the way we do it. Couple announcements. First of all, this book is on fire. We are still in the top on Amazon. I am checking right now. We are still the top new release in the category of War and Peace. This book, the Houthi book, is number one new release in the category of War and Peace. And we are also the number one new release in Yemen history. This is really something special. If you don't believe me, check for yourself, right? I'm dropping the link. New releases, books. I mean, we are number one. This is the number one new release in the category of War and Peace. We are number one. We are the number one book in the category of War and Peace new releases. That is a breakthrough. That is definitely a breakthrough. There's a real need for people to read this book. People want to know about the Houthis. There's never really been a book like this published in the English language, right? There's a couple books, there's certainly books in Arabic about the Houthis. And on top of that, there are a few academic-y ebook kind of things about the Houthis. But this is the first popular history of the Houthis. The first book aimed at ordinary people about who the Houthis are, what they are fighting for, explaining the crisis in the Red Sea and where it came from. And this book is kicking ass. People are buying it, and I am overjoyed by the reaction, that we are getting from this book. Right, I'm absolutely overjoyed to see that so many people want to see what this book is about and want to hear what this book is about. Want to learn the message of this book. We have made a great contribution, but we cannot quit while we are ahead. We cannot quit while we are ahead. It is time to march into the future. We have got to get this book everywhere. We've got to tell the world about the Houthis and why they are right and why the American people should stand with them against the big banks and corporations and against the Israeli settler regime. Why the future of the American working class is with the people of the world against the imperialists and their system. Why it is absolutely justified that the Houthis set up their picket line in the Red Sea, and why it is absolutely abominable that Joe Biden would send forces to try and break the picket line and allow Israel to keep murdering Palestinians. This book is important, and you need to help me get this book into as many people's hands as possible. This book has something very, very important to say. This book says what our community is all about. This book uses the Houthis as an example of a revolutionary movement that builds a base among the population and mobilizes a culture of resistance. This book is very, very, very important. And, I'm not on here to just entertain you. I'm on here to bring you into the struggle. I'm on here to bring you into the fight against imperialism. And one aspect of that fight is telling people who the Houthis are and what they are fighting for. And so I would encourage you, if you have not got a copy of the book, get one. Let's popularize the book. Let's spread this book all over the web, pro-Palestine spaces. Let's distribute this book at Palestine rallies. If you would like to order it in bulk and get bulk, a bulk order where you get them at print cost, send me an email, calebmaupin@gmail.com. I can, arrange a bulk order for you. We want to get this book to as many people as possible so they can know the truth about the conflict and know what side they are on, what side their future is, why the American people must stand against the imperialists and stand with the people of Yemen, stand with the people of Russia, China, Venezuela, Iran, and every country that's fighting to be free from the imperialists. Just want to let you know about that. That's the first big announcement. Second big announcement, mark your calendars. If you are involved, you want to get involved in the CPI, the Center for Political Innovation, our next national gathering will be in Vermont, April 26th through April 29th, right? I was saying April 30th before, but that's Tuesday. It starts on Friday and it ends on Monday. It's April 26th through 29th. April 26th, April 27th, April 28th, and April 29th. It's a 4-day gathering we are having in Vermont, and we would love to have you there. So if you're a CPI member, take that time off work, figure out your transportation up to Vermont, take a train, drive. Maybe if you drive, you can carpool with somebody else. Take a plane. There's an airport in Vermont. We can figure out getting you a ride from the airport. Vermont is not a very big place, so the airport's not too far away from everything else. But we got to figure out how to get people to Vermont for a national training weekend. It's going to be very, very awesome. It's going to also be a lot of fun too, right? In addition to the classes, we'll have a lot of bonding activities, a lot of getting to know you kind of things, exercises. It'll be a great opportunity to meet people who love the kind of stuff that we talk about on this YouTube channel and who want to be involved in the struggle to change the world and defeat the imperialists. It's going to be a great opportunity. I always tell people the road to happiness is the road out of isolation. So if you would like to become part of our growing community, I would encourage you to become a member of CPI. And if you are interested, come to our national gathering. Maybe you're not a member yet. You want to come check us out at the national gathering and then join. That's fine. You are a member, then come to the national gathering. It's going to be a great weekend, and we got plenty of time to prepare. There's going to be a whole new textbook that's available I've been working on. It's going to be a great weekend all around. You don't want to miss it. You want to be there. So please do. Please be there. April 26th, Friday, to April 29th, Monday. It is a 4-day national education workshop, CPI education workshop, and it's going to be tremendous. It's going to be absolutely tremendous. You don't want to miss it. You absolutely don't want to miss it. Couple other announcements. Hey, check out the news section of the CPI website because we are putting articles on there constantly. The latest article is an article by John McCarthy talking about the Uhuru movement and the latest updates in their case. There's also a great article in there by Noah Schenck about the Communist Party, Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist, and the repression they're facing. We are updating the news section of the CPI website all the time. All kinds of great stuff on there. And the website is a great resource. We have a films section. You can watch the 2 Center for Political Innovation films that have been created. You can also, in addition to that, you can watch the videos of all the conferences we've had. We have a library of Marxist texts you can study. We have a books section. The CPI website is really a resource because the Center for Political Innovation, we are an educational project, a socialist education project. And, the website is where we, present our educational materials. So if you want to learn more about this community, you want to go watch some of the great films. Peter Coffin has made 2 films about the Center for Political Innovation, and they're both great, and they're both here on the website. You can watch them. There's a library of Marxist material. There's videos of classes, and it's really a great website. It's really, really turning into a great website. So I would encourage you to check it out. That's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to check it out. Get to know what we're about, get to know what we're doing. Good times. Great things are happening. So there you go. Just wanted to throw that out there. So those are the announcements I just wanted to get out there. Quick reminder for those of you who may not be familiar, the way we do this, I give opening remarks. As the opening remarks are coming in, the super chats, the Rumble rants, the Rockfin tip questions are being recorded. Then after that, we do a roll call. We find out who is watching, who's on the other side of the camera. It's always great to see who our community are. And then after that's all done, at that point, we then do me answering your questions for the rest of the night. That's how we do it. So if you got something you would like me to, answer or comment on, by all means, send a super chat, send a Rockfin tip, send a Rumble rant. Get me talking in the second half of our show. That is my request to you. So on that note, I will begin my opening remarks for tonight. I titled the stream, "Do You Believe in Growth?" That's the title that I gave it. And that is way more than a political question. So much more than a political question. Do you believe in growth? That's a question you should be asking yourself. And we'll get to the politics of that question. We'll get to the economics of it. But I think before we go there, we need to ask ourselves that question on a personal level. Do you believe in growth? Because I know that there are many people nowadays who do not. There are many people in our society, you've probably met them, more people than ever before, who don't believe in growth. They don't believe that tomorrow will be better than today. They don't believe that we're advancing as a society, as a species, as a country, as a community. They don't believe that the world is getting better. They don't believe that we are nearing or marching ahead toward a state of perfection. Instead, they've become cynical. They've become hopeless. They've become pessimistic. They go through life rolling their eyes. They go through life dreading tomorrow, dreading what comes next, dreading interactions with other people. There's a lot of people nowadays who don't believe in growth, and a lot more than there's ever been before. And I think the suicide rate is a great confirmation of that. If someone commits suicide, they do it because they don't believe in growth. They don't believe tomorrow is better than today. They're in so much pain. They believe it is a way of ending the pain that they are in. The ultimate expression of not believing things can get better. Drug addiction. And people using drugs. Yet another example of people not believing in growth. If you are not living, you are dying. If you are not expanding, you are collapsing. And so if you don't believe in growth, if you don't believe in improvement, if you don't believe in striving to get to a higher plane of existence, you're in a pretty bad state of affairs. You're in a pretty bad situation. And if somebody is going out of their way to try and make you not believe in growth, if someone is trying to encourage you to feel cynical, to feel hopeless, to feel misanthropic and hating of your fellow human beings, if someone is going out of their way to cultivate depression inside of you, someone's going out of their way to demoralize you, to demobilize you, they're not helping you. They're not doing you any favors. They're not working in your best interest. And they might call themselves your friend. They might even make you laugh a little bit. But they're not helping you, and they are killing you. Anyone who tells you that growth is bad is trying to kill you. Because if you stop growing, you start dying. And all around us, every day in this world, we see more and more degrowth, pessimism, propaganda everywhere. From the music, the television, Netflix, social media, everywhere around us, there is degrowth propaganda. And most of it is not political. Most of it has no overtly political nature. It's just content that shows human beings in a negative light, that shows the project of human civilization as being pointless, tells you that the universe is simply chaotic and that there is no order or direction to any of it. Most of the degrowth propaganda comes in the form of art that makes us feel disoriented and confused. It comes in the form of movies that make you feel like crap after you watch them. It comes in the form of humor that involves tearing people down. It's funny, I saw the movie that was created by Slavoj Žižek. Slavoj Žižek, the Marxist intellectual, he made a film called The Pervert's Guide to Ideology. Much of the film was not very good, but there was one interesting part of the film that stuck with me. And that was about the fall of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Eastern Bloc. And he talked about a certain television program that was on the air in Czechoslovakia. I think it was Czechoslovakia. And it was a TV program, a comedy show, that didn't make fun of the leaders of communist Czechoslovakia. It made fun of ordinary people. It showed ordinary people in a negative light. And Slavoj Žižek talked about how that particular television program that got people to be kind of cynical, that got people to kind of laugh in a sad, cynical, pessimistic way at their fellow human beings, that played a role in setting the stage for the overthrow of socialism. Just a TV show, just a comedy show, but it had a contemptuous view for mankind. And with that contemptuous view, I think the way Žižek put it in the film is he said it blew up or deconstructed the myth of the people on which the communist regime depended. Interesting. The myth of the people. I'm telling you that all around us, there are forces that reject the idea that there is any point to our existence, that there is any order or truth in the universe, and are actively trying to demobilize us and are more or less trying to kill us. And that's not something that I say lightly, and that's not something that I want to say. I'm telling you, this is the reality. We are surrounded by degrowth propaganda. We are surrounded by anti-human propaganda. We are surrounded by postmodern propaganda. We are surrounded by irrationalist propaganda. We are surrounded by forces that actively seek to tear apart that which holds human civilization together. We human beings have spent our existence trying to find patterns in the universe. Right? That's why ancient civilizations, they were always looking up at the stars. Constellations are a very big part of ancient civilizations and their mythology, etc. Making calendars, trying to make sense of the world around us. The world can be terrifying, the world can be insecure, and the human experience is looking at the chaos of the world and regimenting it and interpreting it in a way that brings order and understanding so we can navigate through it in a healthier way. That is the human experience. Our mind has the ability to computate and calculate and process information about the world around us in order to maneuver toward a more comfortable and secure existence. That is the human experience, and that is uniquely human. Ants have been making their ant farms the same way for millions of years. Beavers have been making their beaver dams the same way for millions of years. But in just a few thousand years, human beings have gone from hunter-gatherer civilization to space travel and iPhones, and that is an astronomical success. The downfall of hunter-gatherer civilization was that we got too good at hunting and gathering. We got too good at hunting animals. We got too good at paying attention to the patterns of how plants grow. And we got so good at hunting and gathering that there was a scarcity. There was not enough animals for us to hunt. There wasn't enough fruits and nuts for us to gather. And so, with our brilliance, we developed something called agriculture. We began domesticating animals. We began growing crops, cultivating the soil. And that was a complete innovation. For the vast majority of human existence, we had never grown crops. We had never domesticated animals. But because we got so good at calculating the patterns in the world around us, that we got so good at hunting and gathering, we were forced to innovate and revolutionize our existence. And based on our understanding and the calculations that we had made and what we had deduced about the world around us, we made a giant leap, a gigantic leap into the future. And we created private property and the state. Go and read Frederick Engels' great pamphlet, The Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State. The first major social revolution was the dawn of agriculture, and it was a tremendous breakthrough, and it rescued humanity from a scarcity created by our innovation. And it's only been uphill from there. First, it was the dawn of agriculture, hunter-gatherer civilization, leading to agriculture, the great slave empires of Greece and Rome, Mesopotamia, Egypt. And then it was the rise of feudalism in Europe and elsewhere. And then out of feudalism, we got the modern capitalist system, the Silk Road and the mercantile class of traders that were bringing in knowledge from Asia and the Middle East, in the bringing of the printing press on the Korean Peninsula, that they developed the printing press, eventually found its way into China. And it was Marco Polo who brought it back. And eventually we had Johannes Gutenberg cultivating the printing press. And the printing press in Europe, and the printing press and the revolutionary changes in society that it brought on, and the Protestant Reformation and the peasant wars of Germany, and so many things all culminated in the rise of a new system called capitalism. And capitalism was a great advance over what had been there before. Feudalism was holding back the productive forces, but capitalism burst forth and brought in a new level of growth. Capitalism led to the discovery of the Americas. Capitalism led to the development of electricity for industrial purposes. Capitalism was a great advance over what was there before. It was a great advance over what was there before. But capitalism has problems. Never before in human history have we had a system where people can become hungry because there is too much food. In every system that preceded capitalism, people were only hungry because there were shortages of food. But capitalism became the first system where people could lose their jobs and struggle to find food to eat because there was too much food that had been created. Capitalism was the first system where people could become homeless because there was too much housing. Never before had that happened. Never before had you had a situation where people could become homeless because there was too much housing. The phenomenon of poverty created by abundance, poverty created by technological advancement, wealth leading to hunger and poverty. That was a uniquely capitalist development. And the more capitalist technology advances, the more this problem manifests itself. Capitalism has a problem called overproduction. The worker is never paid enough in the process of production to purchase the product that he creates. The capitalist is constantly trying to reduce the amount of labor involved in the process of production so he can churn out as many products as he possibly can, as cheaply as he possibly can. However, he can only extract his profits from the labor of a human being. And so the fewer workers he hires, the lower the rate of profit that he makes. And the fewer workers that are hired, the lower the wages paid, the less purchasing power the worker has. Capitalism has this built-in problem of overproduction and the tendency of the rate of profit to fall. And no matter what is done to the capitalist system, this problem continues to return. The Great Depression of the 1930s was not caused by shortages of food or shortages of radios and motor cars and steel. It was caused by abundance. The Great Depression of the 1930s was caused as a result of great innovations that had been developed by Henry Ford. Taylorism, factory production was more efficient than it had ever been. And they said, Henry Ford has overtaken Karl Marx. Henry Ford has defeated Karl Marx in the Roaring '20s. But then the economic crisis of the 1930s came, and poverty was created by abundance. The problem with capitalism is that it holds back growth. The problem with capitalism is that with profits in command of production, with the irrationality of the market, growth always ends up like a dog chasing its own tail. The more you create, the more efficient you make production, the poorer people get. And the capitalist is constantly advancing technology beyond the artificial restraints of his system. The ability of human beings to create is always expanding. But the limits of the for-profit system are always collapsing inward, getting smaller. And if you believe in growth, you should be a socialist, because socialism, as written about by Karl Marx, as written about by Friedrich Engels, as written about by Vladimir Lenin, as written about by Stalin and Deng Xiaoping and Mao Zedong and Lenin and all of them, is about growth. In Socialism, Utopian and Scientific, Friedrich Engels says the difference between capitalism and socialism is like the difference between lightning and static electricity and a modern telegraph machine. It's taking the energy that's just out there chaotically and concentrating it for intentional purpose. It is taking control of the means of production, the centers of economic power, and rationally organizing that productive power so the economy is no longer restrained by the irrationality of the market and growth becomes uninterrupted. Socialism is society taking control of the commanding heights of economic power in order to abolish the chaos of profits in command. That is what socialism and Marxism and communism have always been about. And when the Great Depression hit in the 1930s, the whole planet was having a Great Depression except for one country. And that country was the Soviet Union. And you can go read Time magazine articles from the 1930s. You can go read all kinds of information about how the capitalists of the world were in absolute awe and wonder at the economic miracles the Soviet Union was achieving. While the Western capitalist countries were full of poverty and insecurity and hunger, the Soviet Union was racing ahead to become a modern industrial superpower. And all the various capitalists were trying to figure out how they could utilize the strengths of the Soviet economy without having socialism. Mussolini developed a theory of super capitalism, and he argued that the Soviet Union wasn't socialist, it was just super capitalism, and that he, with his fascist state, he could, with his corporate fascism, he could make super capitalism in Italy. H.G. Wells has a long interview with Stalin, where Stalin explains to him that there's no way the successes of the Soviet Union's 5-year plans could be replicated in a capitalist economy, because the basis of the Soviet Union's success is overcoming capitalism and production organized for profit. It's a great conversation, Marxism versus liberalism. The interview or conversation that Stalin had with H.G. Wells. The Soviet Union and their economic system was a centrally planned economy with 5-year economic plans, and they were able to mobilize the population to build. And they weren't the only country that did it. The first book we ever published as the Center for Political Innovation is this book, The Green Book by Gaddafi, with an introduction by yours truly. This book has sold well over 2,000 copies, and probably about at least 3,000 if you include the ones that we've distributed ourselves. But well over 2,300 copies of this book have been sold with our introduction. And if you read the Green Book, you'll learn that Libya was a socialist society. It had a centrally planned economy. The oil of Libya, it's an oil-rich country, was under the control of a revolutionary government that used it to build up its industries, to build the world's largest irrigation system, the Great Man-Made River, that used it to build a healthcare system and an education system, that used it to green the desert, that used it to build up industries. And Libya had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. On no other country on the African continent did people live as long as the Libyans lived with socialism. The economic explosion that Gaddafi created in Libya was yet another example of what Stalin had done in the 1930s, the Soviet Union had done. It was a centrally planned economy that took control of its own natural resources and used them to mobilize to create economic growth. And Libya was a stronghold of economic growth until 2011, when Barack Hussein Obama mobilized to destroy Libya with NATO bombs. And now Libya is deeply poor once again and impoverished and in chaos. But Libya's economic success under the leadership of Muammar Gaddafi is yet another example of overcoming the irrationality of capitalism so that you can have growth. China used to be the sick man of Asia. The Chinese Communist Party has raised 800 million people out of poverty. It's built the world's largest hydroelectrical power plant, the Great Three Gorges Dam. It has the world's largest telecommunications manufacturer, Huawei Technologies, a cooperative corporation, an example of profit sharing working, according to the Harvard Business Review. A profit-oriented corporation that functions as part of an overall state central plan cooperating with the Chinese military. Huawei Technologies is the biggest telecommunications manufacturer in the world. It makes way better phones than Apple does, makes way better phones than other companies do. Half the steel in the world is made today in China. And they say, oh, well, that's because China's capitalist, Caleb. China's capitalist, really? You're telling me a country where the government controls the banks and tells the banks when they can lend money and when they can't lend money? You're telling me that a country that has majority state-run industries, you're telling me that a country where private corporations have no rights and are forced to cooperate with a 5-year economic plan created by the Communist Party, you're telling me that's a capitalist country? There's a higher rate of state ownership in China than in Venezuela. Venezuela is a socialist country, but it's mainly the oil that is in the government's hands, and then subsidies are given to a private sector. But China has a huge amount of state-run industries. They don't have state-run industries very much in Venezuela. China has got more state-run industries than Venezuela does. It's got a state centrally planned economy, and it has been an astounding success. All over the world, we see the success of socialism. When societies take control of their centers of economic power, their own economy, their natural resources, they overcome the irrationality of the market and they rationally control the economy. The result is unleashing an explosion of growth. That's the result. And nowadays, part of unleashing that growth is small business owners. The strength of socialism in Nicaragua is their micro-entrepreneurship program, where they enable Nicaraguans to open their own businesses. There are thousands of miniature worker cooperatives in Nicaragua. The strength of socialism in Vietnam, the socialist-oriented market economy, is the thousands and thousands of small businesses that receive a subsidy from the Vietnamese government and carry out their profit-making competitive activities in accordance with an overall state central plan set by the Communist Party. China has plenty of innovation and growth happening in its tech sector, new computer programs being designed, new technological breakthroughs. They're pioneering fusion energy right now at their universities with their research. And all of that is being subsidized by the central planners, by the Communist Party. 21st century socialism takes the strengths of the market and forces them to work in the interest of a socialist planned economy. Let the market do what it's good at, but don't leave us at the mercy of an invisible hand. Let the market make some nice toys for children to play with. Let the market have a nice restaurant you can go eat at with your family. Let the market have a nice hotel for when you go on vacation. But don't let the market control the cost of housing. Don't let the market control the amount of steel that is produced. Don't let the market control the electricity. Don't let the market control healthcare. Don't let the market determine who gets business loans in order to do what. Central planning plays its role, and the market supplements the holes, the areas where the central planners may not have the ultimate solution. 21st century socialism utilizes the strengths of the market to maximize growth in an overall centrally planned economy. And it is an astoundingly successful system. And one thing that frequently infuriates me is that everything I just explained to you about what socialism actually is not part of the debate. There's a lot of debate nowadays in the United States, especially since Bernie Sanders, since 2016, about socialism versus capitalism. And the debate revolves around, should the government give people free stuff or not? Well, I'm not against the government giving people free stuff. The government gives free stuff to corporations all the time. Gives free weapons to Israel, gives free military support to Israel, gives free subsidies to corporations, free tax breaks and rewards to corporations. The government gives free stuff to rich people all the time. Why shouldn't it give us health care? Why shouldn't it give us education? Why shouldn't it give food stamps to hungry families? Why shouldn't it provide services in the communities? I'm not opposed to the government giving people free stuff. That's not what socialism is. Margaret Thatcher says socialism doesn't work because eventually you run out of other people's money. Well, that's not applicable. All Stalin had done in the 1930s was redistribute money that was already there. The Soviet Union would never have become an industrial superpower. It never would have invented space travel. It never would have defeated the Nazi invaders. The essence of what Stalin did was not redistribute other people's money. If all the Chinese Communist Party had ever done is redistribute money that was already there, China would still be the sick man of Asia. What the Chinese Communist Party did was not redistribute income. It was rational planning and organizing of the economy so that growth could be unleashed. I don't know if all Venezuela ever did was redistribute other people's money. They would never have wiped out illiteracy. They would never have built modern housing for the entire country. If all Nicaragua had ever done is redistribute money that was already there, they would never have electrified the whole country. They would never have made Nicaragua have an astoundingly strong economy in comparison to Honduras and Guatemala and other free market countries throughout the region. Socialism is not the redistribution of income, and it's not a welfare state. Socialism is rational planning and public control of the commanding heights of economic power. And the point of socialism is to create growth. That is the entire point of socialism. Gaddafi took power in Libya to create growth. Stalin took power in Russia to create growth. The Chinese Communist Party took power in order to create growth. The essence of socialism is growth. We are not against growth. We don't think growth is bad. We want economic growth. We want people to rise up from poverty. We want technology to advance without people losing their jobs as a result of it. Self-driving cars is an example I've used over and over again. Why should we be afraid of self-driving cars? There should be nothing terrifying about self-driving cars. The idea that if you want to go someplace, you can get into your car, type in where you want to go, and sit back and take it easy and not worry about a car accident and not worry about getting hurt. You can just put your arms up and the car just goes there all by itself. That's a dream. That's amazing. That's amazing. That would be tremendous if we had a rational society. We don't have a rational society. We have a society where self-driving cars would be a horror, a nightmare. Andrew Yang said the result would be millions and millions of unemployed truck drivers, riots in the streets, hunger. Self-driving cars would destroy the American economy. Why? That's not rational. That's not rational. Self-driving cars are amazing, but capitalism makes it into a nightmare. That's the problem with the capitalist system. Growth is a good thing. Growth is the essence of what it means to be a human being. You are awesome. You know that? Not enough people hear this. You turn on the TV, they're telling you you're fat. They're telling you you're not good looking. They're telling you you need to buy their product to look better. You turn on the YouTube, they're giving you advice about how to do this and how to do that, and you're not good enough. That's what they're all telling you. You're not rich enough. You're not physically fit enough. You're not productive enough. You're not good enough is always the message we're getting. Everywhere we go, part of this degrowth propaganda is getting us to hate ourselves. You're not good enough is what they're telling you. Well, they're wrong. You're awesome. In your mind, you have something that can never be replicated by artificial intelligence. No machine will ever be able to do what you can do. The human mind is one of the most amazing miracles that has ever existed. As I said many, many times before, ants have been building their ant farms the same way for millions of years. Beavers have been building their beaver dams the same way for millions of years. But in just a short time, we have accomplished so much. We are between God and animals. Animals are animals. Animals function according to the same loop. They never expand, they never create, and God is God. But we're in the middle. Human beings have a spark of godlike creative power within them. The ability to reinvent our relationship with nature. The ability to make nature serve us and serve us in much more efficient ways. To constantly expand our ability. That's what makes you amazing. You are not an animal. Let me repeat that. You are not an animal. An animal just seeks pleasure and avoids pain, but you have a soul. You have the ability to endure pain because you think it's right. You have the ability to work against your short-term interests because you are motivated by greater desire. You are not an animal. You have a soul. God endowed you with the spark of creative power that sets you apart from any other species. You are awesome. You are tremendous. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And what human beings have yet to achieve is even greater. We can't even imagine what's coming. With artificial intelligence, with technology, with all the great things that we're doing now, human beings have the potential to soar to new horizons like you would never believe. But what's getting in our way? What's getting in our way is the artificial restraints of a system of production organized for profit. What's getting in our way is the fact that the centers of economic power are not being operated in a rational way for the good of society. They are operating for the benefit of a small group of owners. That's what's getting in our way. Fighting capitalism in our time, it's not exactly what we're doing, right? Those micro entrepreneurs in Nicaragua, they're capitalists technically. They work and exist in the context of a socialist society, but they're capitalists, right? The market sector in China, that's capitalism, but it exists in the context of a socialist planned economy, but it's capitalism, right? We're not against capitalism. We're against capitalism being the dominant system, but we're not against capitalism itself. We're not against people making money. We're not against small business owners. We're not against people trying to please their customers. We're not against someone owning a restaurant or a store. We're not against capitalism. We're against imperialism. And this is the important breakthrough. This is why Marxism-Leninism was different than the socialism that preceded it. In Europe, before World War I, there were all kinds of socialists. There were socialists elected to parliament. In Britain, they had the Labour Party. That was a socialist party, in words, that was in the parliament. They had labor unions in all the factories. They had socialist choirs and socialist marching bands. In Germany, the German Social Democratic Party had millions of members. There were socialist kindergartens. There were socialist schools. There were socialist choirs, socialist marching bands, socialist baseball and soccer teams, socialists in the parliament, socialist beer halls where you could go drink. Socialism was all over Europe in the lead up to World War I. But there wasn't any revolution. European capitalism was actually getting stronger, not weaker. There were less and less protests and revolt. It didn't make any sense. Why? Why is socialism everywhere, but capitalism is doing just fine? And then, to top it all off, all the major socialist parties, they gathered and they promised that they would never send the workers off to die in a capitalist war. Never would they send workers to kill each other in a war. But then World War I happened, and all these socialists, the German Social Democratic Party, the French Socialist Party, the British Labour Party, they all flipped. They all changed their minds, and World War I happened, and 20 million working class people died in World War I because the socialist movement didn't stop it. And at that point, Lenin said that the Second International, the socialist movement of Europe, was a stinking corpse. And Lenin wrote his groundbreaking book, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. And in that book, he explained we're not against capitalism. We're against imperialism. Capitalism has evolved from being a system of factory owners exploiting factory workers to being a system of big bankers dominating the global economy and holding back economic development. Capitalism is trusts, cartels, and syndicates. It is the emergence of an international financial oligarchy that holds back development, that seizes territory around the world and carves out spheres of influence. The export of capital, corporations based in Britain and America and Germany and France spreading their tentacles all across the planet to keep people poor, to engage not just in exploitation, but in super exploitation, so that they can make not just profits, but super profits. Capitalism entered its monopoly stage of imperialism, decadent, moribund capitalism. That's what we're against. We are against the imperialist system. We are against the system of capitalism in its monopoly stage. And part of imperialism was buying off a section of the working class at home. Part of imperialism was buying off the white workers in America and telling them that they were better than the black workers. And they should support the wars, and they should support the government, and they should support Jim Crow segregation to keep those black workers down. Part of imperialism was buying off those English workers to think they were better than the Irish workers. Part of imperialism was buying off the skilled workers to say that they're better than the unskilled industrial workers on the assembly line. Part of imperialism was buying off the English-speaking workers and saying that they're better than the workers who don't speak English. Stratifying the working class, cultivating an aristocracy of labor, a layer of workers who were loyal to the imperialists and stood against the other workers, many of whom might even call themselves socialists, many of whom are in labor unions, but they are on the side of the empire and they are against the other working class people, and they're against the people in the colonized world who want their independence, cultivating an aristocracy of labor. That's what socialism in Europe had led to. And Lenin said, in this new stage, we're not fighting against capitalism, we're fighting against imperialism. And the revolutionary energy isn't going to be in Britain or France or America or Germany. It's going to be in Russia, and it's going to be in China, and it's going to be in Vietnam, and it's going to be in Africa, and it's going to be in Latin America. That's where the revolutionary energy is going to be. And it won't just be workers fighting factory owners. The revolutionary energy is going to be entire nations fighting for national liberation against the imperialists. And the working class, because it advocates the creation of socialism, will lead the entire nation to fight against the imperialists. And Lenin was right. The revolutions of the 20th century didn't happen in Europe. They happened in the East. Russia and China, Latin America, in Africa. And they were not fought on the basis of the workers against the bosses. They were fought on the basis of the nation striving to be free, and the working class and the proletarian ideology leading the nation to break the chains of imperialism and build itself up with a socialist, rationally planned economy. Leninism, Marxism-Leninism, very much lays the foundation for everything that's happening in the world today. You would not have the BRICS if it wasn't for the Bolsheviks. You would not have the Shanghai Cooperation Organization if it wasn't for Marxism-Leninism. You would not have the Bolivarian Alternative of Latin America or the Axis of Resistance in the Middle East. You wouldn't have any of that if it wasn't for the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. The Bolsheviks laid the foundation. Marxism-Leninism, with its understanding of imperialism as the enemy, with its understanding of national liberation as the force that would lead to creating socialism. That thesis, that understanding changed the entire socialist movement. It changed the world. And now we have a world with two economies in it. After the fall of the Soviet Union, they made us believe that the Western capitalist system had total hegemony, was the end of history, but they're wrong. Russia reasserted itself. China continued building itself up. Latin American countries broke free. The Islamic Revolution of Iran positioned itself as the vanguard of resistance to imperialism in the Middle East region. African countries continued to assert their independence. Just recently, we had 3 countries breaking out of ECOWAS, a great step forward. Socialism. Marxism-Leninism laid the foundation for a whole new world to come into being. And now what we're seeing is at home in the West, that aristocracy of labor that they built in order to strengthen their system is being abolished. They are abolishing the aristocracy of labor. They don't need it any longer. They can't afford it any longer. They are getting rid of the aristocracy of labor. Living standards are dropping, and the Western countries are internally imploding. And this creates a great opening for those of us who believe in economic growth to do what we are supposed to do. Now is the time to fight against the imperialists right here in the homeland. The Chinese Communist Party, they published a document called Critique of the General Line, or Proposal of the General Line of the Communist Movement. In that document, they laid out pretty clearly what you are supposed to do if you live in an imperialist country. I'll read it to you. I'll read to you exactly what they said that we are supposed to do. It says the proletarian parties in imperialist or capitalist countries must maintain their own ideological, political, and organizational independence in leading revolutionary struggles. At the same time, they must unite all the forces that can be united and build a broad, united front against monopoly capital and against the imperialist policies of aggression and war. Let me repeat that. The proletarian parties in imperialist or capitalist countries must maintain their own ideological, political, and organizational independence in leading revolutionary struggles. At the same time, they must unite all the forces that can be united and build a broad, united front against monopoly capital and against the imperialist policies of war and aggression. Our job is to build our own organization, but at the same time, unite all who can be united against the big monopolies and against the policies of war. That's our job. And in another document, the Chinese Communist Party said roughly the same thing. It said the liberation movement of the proletariat in the capitalist countries should ally themselves with the national liberation movements in the colonies and the dependent countries. This alliance can smash the alliance of the imperialists with the feudal and comprador reactionary classes in the colonies and all dependent countries, and therefore inevitably put a final end to the imperialist system throughout the world. That's from Long Live Leninism, 1960, Chinese Communist Party. The liberation movements of the proletariat in the capitalist countries should ally themselves with the national liberation movements in the colonies and oppressed countries. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. Our job is to build a united front against the imperialists. Our job is to bring together as many people who can be united as possible in order to defeat the imperialists, to build a united front against the imperialists, to bring together the small business owners, to bring together the students and the low-income workers and everybody who can be united against the corporations, the big monopolies that run this country, and their drive toward war to preserve their system. That's our job, to build a united front. And the basis of that united front is believing in economic growth. Because as the capitalists and imperialists, as their system crashes and burns, they're trying to save it with destruction. They're trying to save it with degrowth and destruction. So our job is to mobilize all the forces that don't want their degrowth, all the forces that oppose their plans to crush the productive forces and try to stabilize society, into a coalition centered around belief in growth to defeat the imperialists. That is our job, to build a united front against imperialists. And that is what the Center for Political Innovation aims to at least have some part in doing. That is what we aim to do, to build a united front against imperialism, to unite all who can be united against the imperialists and their policies of war. That's what we're trying to do. We believe in economic growth. We believe in a society where growth is no longer restrained by the irrationality of capitalism. We believe in a society where the creative power of human beings is unleashed to higher potential and greater heights than ever before. That's what we believe. And so I thought, for my opening remarks tonight, I would just make that clear. So I see there's some new people in the chat tonight. Shout out to you. I'll be reading everyone's super chats tonight. So if you got any more questions, send me a super chat. I'll be reacting to all the super chats here in the second half of our show. And I just want to end, this is my last stream of January. Next time I see you all, it will be February. I want to end by telling you all how much I appreciate you, but also communicating to you all that some days are easier than others. Some times are easier than others. And right now, I'm struggling a little bit. And I'm struggling because of the fact that for my job, I have to have this very expensive apartment in New York City, which honestly, if it was not for my job, I would not have. And it's a little bit frustrating, but it gives me an opportunity, which is that I can stream for all of you a lot more often. Right? I can just come in this room anytime. I don't have to fight with my wife or anything. I have this home studio where I can stream for all of you. But it costs a ridiculous amount to maintain this apartment. The rent is too damn high, as they say. And, my My wife was working before, and we're struggling right now, and it's a little bit difficult. So I'm going to get on here and I'm going to try to stream as much as I can, because that's what I get out of having this apartment, is I can stream anytime. I don't have to fight with my wife for control of the living room. I can stream anytime I want. But that said, you all are going to get as much of me as I can bring you, but I need your support. I really do. I mean, sending a super chat is not just a way to get me talking. It's also a way to support the work that we're doing here. I'll just be real about that, right? It's good to ask me questions, get me talking, but it's also a way to support this channel, right? Buying the books that we publish, right? Buying the books that we publish, that's also a way to support the work that we're doing here. So I'm just telling you that it's been quite difficult the last couple months. I'm working on a couple different projects to try and get my finances in order, but lately it's been a little bit of a squeeze. And I keep, we're getting ourselves out of the rut, and I've got different ways of doing things, but part of what I need is I just need more of you all to step up to the plate. Ask me more questions, send me more super chats, get me talking more, right? Make it easier for me to keep doing my job. And also, since I'll be giving you more of my attention because I have this home studio, I have this room I can just go into and stream anytime. Take advantage of that, right? Think of things you'd like to ask me about. Do what Anthony did, right? He's got something he wants me to comment on. Send me a super chat, $2, not bad. But your support of this channel is more vitally needed. And I stream a lot. I try to stream every day if I can, right? So I'm here for you. Right. I'm here for you. I'm always going to be here. I enjoy doing it. I would do it, if it didn't pay anything. But right now it's getting to be a little bit difficult financially. I'll just tell you that. I'm trying to figure some things out. I don't want to get into specifics, trying to negotiate some different resolutions to the financial problems, but it's a bit much, right? It's a little bit difficult. So I am asking you all to step up a little bit further and enable me to keep doing what I'm doing. It would be greatly appreciated if you could do that. I'm sorry to have to just be blatantly honest with you all about that. And it's actually been this way for a couple months, and I don't want to be that guy on the internet asking you to step up to the plate, but I just have to, because the rent is too damn high, as they say. The rent is too damn high. And, I'm trying to resolve this situation in multiple ways, but right now I'm really feeling it. So, the more super chats you guys can ask, you want to join the Patreon, right? We have the Patreon. Tomorrow night, we're doing a patrons only stream for anyone who's a member on the Patreon, right? So I need more of you to join the Patreon. You'll get access to me, patrons only streams, right? But I need to get to a better situation, because right now, it's a little bit too much of a tight squeeze. I'll just put it that way. It's a little bit too much of a tight squeeze, and we need to get past that. So there you go. That's a way you can support me on the Patreon. Ask more super chat questions. I just need to get myself in a situation where I'm not stressed about money all day long, because that's the way things have been around this place lately. And it's been that way for a couple months, and it's got to change. So I'm asking you all to, continue to support me as you see more of me, and you will be seeing more of me. I had kind of an illness earlier this month, and I wasn't able to stream as much, but it looks like for the month of February, I'm going to be on here quite a bit, and I'll always be here, and I'm not going to go away. Right. But, I do need your support. I really do need your support. And one thing you can do is you can help us build, right? Get this book out there. Tell more people about this YouTube channel. Right? Join the Center for Political Innovation. I have no access to those funds, mind you, right? CPI is at this point, all the funds, all the money that's CPI, that's separate from me. I don't have access to those bank accounts. The funds are handled by the president of our organization, and I have no access to that. It's in another state. So CPI is different, right? If you want to support CPI's activities, please do. And I donate to CPI out of my own money, but CPI is different. But this channel is my channel, right? The books that I write are my books. And lately it has been a little bit difficult. I'm just being blatantly honest with you. It's been a bit rough. Yeah, because you don't advertise here. I don't, right? I'm about the message. I'm not about trying to make money. And I've said many times, I'm not trying to build a fandom. I'm not, right? I am trying to build a real organization, right? I'll just throw this out there, right? Before we get to the roll call and all of that. I hear different, I hear different critiques of me that go around. And I try not to react to a lot of them. But one of the critiques I've gotten, and this one blows my mind, is, somebody who shall not be named, has, has critiqued me for not being homophobic, for not, for being neutral on LGBT questions. And I heard that and I was just like, what is wrong with this person? This person is a Muslim. This person feels that, that being LGBT is against her Islamic faith or whatnot. But, we have always said in CPI, you're welcome. If you think that homosexuality is wrong, you're welcome, right? We're happy to have you, right? There are members of our group that do feel that way. There are members of our group that are critical of the trans thing from a feminist perspective or religious perspective. They're welcome. Most socialist groups don't welcome such folks. Most socialist groups, are adamant that they are pro-LGBT. Well, we have plenty of LGBT members, but we also have members that are opposed to that on religious grounds. But this person was criticizing me and saying it was just so cringe that I'm neutral on these questions. And I heard that and I thought, what does this person want me to do? Go out of my way to offend people, right? I mean, we're constantly being accused of being homophobic and transphobic and all these things, but I guess that's not enough. I should go out of my way to offend people. I should go out of my way to make enemies. But I realized that that's, again, if you want attention on social media, that's what you should do, right? If I was just wanting this channel, to be big, sure, I would be as offensive and nasty as I could be to people. But that's not what I want. I want to build a real organization, right? And that being offensive, being nasty, being hateful might build your audience on the internet. But it's not, number one, what this world needs. Like I said, we need growth. We need growth. And number two, it's also not going to build an organization, right? People don't join a group. Look, a lot of people are struggling, okay? It's a very hard time to be a young person in America. I'm 36 years old, and I thank God for that. Thank God I wasn't a teenager during the pandemic. I don't know what would have happened. You have no idea how hard it is for these younger folks nowadays, unless you are one. There's plenty of you watching. People in their 20s, people in their late teens who watch this show, they know what I'm talking about. It's very hard to exist in this world nowadays. And people go through shit. And sometimes the way people feel at one point is not the way they feel the next day. And people want a place to belong, and people are confused about who they are and all of that. And I want people that might be struggling to always feel welcome in our community. That's what I want. I don't want people to feel like, if they identify a certain way, if they are struggling with a certain aspect of their identity, they don't know who they are, they don't know what's right. I want them to be welcome here. And that includes people of faith also, people whose their faith says that, no, this is wrong. You're welcome too, but you might change your opinion. And I am not going to play this game of being a bully on the internet and telling people who are struggling, people who don't know what's right, people who don't know who they are, that are trying to figure it out in a world so full of chaos. I'm not going to play the game of trying to make them feel unwelcome, feel like they're not okay to be who they are, right? People struggle. People go through different things. It's hard. It's hard to live in this world that we live in right now, where people have no identity. People don't know if right and wrong even exists anymore. And it's one thing to say, and we have gotten a huge amount of flack for saying that people that have a socially conservative perspective about abortion, about gay marriage, they are welcome in our group. And I will say that, right? We will never kick anyone out of CPI because they are against abortion. We will never kick anyone out of CPI because they're against gay marriage, because they don't agree with the trans thing. They're welcome. But that said, we're not going to exclude people because of what they might be going through, because of how they might identify, because of what they're dealing with. Right? There's too much meanness in the world today. Twitter is a collection of meanness. It's a collection of people being hateful and nasty and talking right past each other and not listening to each other and interpreting what the other person says in the most hostile possible way. And I don't want to contribute to that. I am not doing my job if I contribute to that culture. Now, if I join the LGBT bandwagon and this becomes a, condemn the homophobes, dox the homophobes channel, I'm not doing that either. And honestly, I go back and forth. I'm not even sure where I stand on some of those issues. For the most part, my attitude is live and let live, right? And that's the attitude of our organization. But honestly, I wonder sometimes about where right and wrong is. And I've seen a lot of things in my life, and I don't know exactly where right and wrong is in that category either. I have questions. And if I have questions and I'm on here giving my opinion every night, then I've got to allow people in our community to have questions. I mean, and it's one thing to critique the synthetic left that just fixates on those issues like nothing else. They don't care about all the stuff I was talking about, economics and war. They just talk LGBT all day long. Well, I'm not going to do that. And we're not going to talk about it for the most part. We're going to focus on trying to stop the wars. We're going to focus on struggling for economic justice. But that said, if somebody is opposed to that kind of thing, or if somebody is dealing with that kind of thing themselves, they're welcome in this community. And we're not going to judge them. And we're not going to try and tell them that there's something wrong with them. And we're going to let them figure that out on their own. Right? We're going to let them figure that out on their own. We are not going to join this trend. I cannot stand this trend of people who think that somehow being a socialist. I never would have guessed this in a million years. I have been so frustrated by the other extreme for so long. The other extreme for so long of, so-and-so, Gaddafi, it's okay to destroy Libya, because he wasn't pro-LGBT. I've dealt with all that kind of bread tube crap for so long. But the other extreme of people that think somehow being an anti-imperialist means you get on there and you call people junior high nasty names, means you insult people on the basis of their gender presentation or conformity. I'm not going to do that. That's just not right. Okay? That's not right. It's wrong. You don't treat people like that. Regardless of what your religious or moral perspective is, you show respect for other people. Right? And I didn't become a communist to talk about the LGBT thing. And that's the whole reason CPI, that's the whole reason we got attacked by the mainstream left, is that we just didn't want to talk about it. And there are people that came along who saw what I was doing, but they missed the fucking point. They missed the fucking point. I didn't become a socialist to talk about that. Not pro, not con. That's the point. The point is to talk about class struggle. The point is to talk about economics. The point is to talk about opposing war. The point is to talk about the imperialist system that's threatening people's lives. The point is not to talk about that. And if you just talk about it all the time in the opposite way, you're not doing a better job. Right? You are reinforcing their paradigm. In their world, nobody cares that the economy is getting worse and people are losing their jobs. All people care about is transgender bathrooms. In their world, nobody cares about healthcare and education and opposing wars. All people care about is pride flags and all of that. And Herb Bryant must appreciate what I'm saying, and I'm glad to hear that. But if you talk about those issues nonstop, no matter which side you're on, you're helping the imperialists. Okay? You're not bringing people together. You're helping polarize the country in a cultural way. You're diverting the conversation away from opposing their wars, away from economics. And just because you're on the opposite side as the synthetic left doesn't mean you're right. Doesn't mean you're helping. Right? And that is, that is how I feel. And that is how CPI has been formed. And it is that understanding that has helped us survive. If we had done differently, we would have collapsed as an organization a long time ago. If we had pandered and gone along with the LGBT, every meeting starts with pronouns. If we'd started doing that crap, we would have fallen apart a long time ago. On the other hand, though, if we had come out swinging on the opposite side, that would have become all we talked about, and we would have gone completely off course. But our position has always been, we don't have a position. We're not concerned about it. We're focused on other things. There are differences of opinion within our group, and people have a right to live their lives and navigate these own things. It's called freedom of conscience, right? And, it's called freedom of conscience. And that is where I stand, right? That's where I stand, and I'm just appalled. I'm just saddened on some level. I'm saddened. It hurts my soul that some people can't understand. But the point is to bring people together. The point is to get people to care about each other. The point, thank you, Dan. Thank you. The point is to get people to have empathy for one another. The point is to get people to see their common interest. But for some people, that's not the point. For some people, this is just a rich kid performance on the internet. It's about gossiping about people and their private lives. It's about being, I'm more manly than you. I'm more cool than you. I have more money than you. It's some Beverly Hills 90210 shit, and it's just, these are people that never grew out of high school, and they don't understand what real organizing is about. You go and watch our New Year's message, and you look at all the events that we did last year, the conferences, the rallies, the interventions, that we wouldn't have been able to do any of that if we had talked the way these people talk, right? What has enabled CPI to be the organization that it is has been our ability to say, we don't want to talk about it. That's been our ability. And if we had gone along with it, on the one hand, we would have collapsed. And if we had turned into a group that was, taking an opposite position, we would have also collapsed. And that is one of the biggest strengths. It's one of the things I'm the most proud of the Center for Political Innovation for doing, is not taking a position, is going right past that crap, going right past that stuff. That is what I'm proud of us for doing, is going right past that. We dodged a bullet, and we're going to keep dodging the bullet. And I'm sorry if that's cringe. Oh, shut up. You just shut up, right? Because I'm trying to help people here. I'm trying to build the community people need here. I'm not trying to be a rich kid on the internet. I'm trying to actually get something done. And that's why this channel hasn't exploded the way other people's channels have, right? Look, you all have way more access to me than you should, all right? Some of the attacks that have been leveled against me only were leveled against me because people were able to interact with me in real life. They were able to dig into my personal life. If I was just a YouTube streamer, I would have a lot more privacy. But, I'm not interested in just being a YouTube streamer. I'm interested in building a community of resistance. That's what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in actually building a block of resistance. And that's where I stand. So I just wanted to get that out there as well. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us? Mark Jones in Utica, New York. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Nick in Tampa. Absolutely right, Caleb. I'm always right about everything. Just kidding. Bob Troy in New York. George Munoz in Sydney. Nate in Chicago. Seasoned Noob in China. Mohsin from Iran. Right? Tampa in Florida. Right? David in San Jose, California. Rasmus in Copenhagen, Denmark. Ed in Kentucky. Mia in Iceland. Very good. Nicholas in Miami. Dan Keating in New Jersey. Dr. Doomface in San Diego. Interesting name. Patch in Arizona. Balthazar in Oakland. On the Rumble, Viking Dave in Upper Michigan. Welcome, Viking Dave. Anthony in Detroit. Alex in Brazil. Right? Let's see. Jamie Turner has left a couple super chats, or Rumble rants, or Rockfin tips. We'll talk about that. Chris and April in Salt Lake City. Moonlight Beach in California. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Scott S. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and Jamie in Boise, Idaho. Auckland, New Zealand. Rasputin from Prussia. I'm a Viking. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Briggy in Pennsylvania. Briggy in Pennsylvania. Hey, Nick from California. Welcome, Nick. Good to see you. Chicago and facts, Caleb. We love and respect our CPI comrades. Exactly. And that is the way we should treat people, with love and respect. Viking communism. All righty. Peach Pit. All right. Okie dokie. So now I'm going to start answering people's questions. First, we got Jamie Turner. He says, what is the next big propaganda push after wokeness inevitably fails? Good question, right? I am seeing some very bad anti-woke stuff right now, right? I'm seeing anti-woke that it's anti-China. I'm seeing anti-woke that says China is responsible for the opioid epidemic, which it's not. I'm seeing anti-woke that is pro-Israel. I'm seeing anti-woke that is, celebrating people getting cut up on the border fence. I'm seeing some anti-woke stuff that ain't good. Now, I don't know if that's going to become the dominant trend or not, because demographically speaking, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off, right? I mean, demographically speaking, that may not work out, right? But the Ron DeSantis anti-woke stuff is very bad. It's very, very bad. I'll just tell you that much. It's very bad, but I don't know if it's going to replace wokeness. I feel like they're going to keep wokeness there in their back pocket and rev it up every so often. Part of what they're doing is they're cultivating counter gangs. They're cultivating fanatics that they can send out. It's not about winning over the bulk of the population. It's about having counter gangs, having groups of fanatics they can dispatch at any time. So that's a good question. The next question is, what would you say to anyone who is extremely pessimistic because of the climate issue? Well, the answer to climate change is getting beyond fossil fuels, fusion energy. Right? The answer to climate change, if it is what they're saying it is, which I mean, the alarmism, I never buy alarmism, right? Anyone who says, oh my God, you got to do what we want right now. Well, no. Okay. The world is not going to end, right? There may be an issue, but the climate hysteria is about creating a panic so you do what they want, right? That's a sales technique, right? If someone's trying to sell you an apartment, they're like, oh, you better decide now. I got a family coming. They're coming by at 3. They're ready to buy it. You better get it now if you want it, right? That's what they do, right? And so the Democrats, that's been one of the things they've done for a long time. Right? There's going to be a nuclear war if you don't vote for us, right? You can't vote for Ronald Reagan. Oh, we got to stop Reagan. There's going to be a nuclear war. Well, Reagan won the election and there wasn't a nuclear war. That was bullshit, right? Oh my God, climate change, the world's going to burst into flames. You got to vote for the Democrats, If it goes to climate change, we're all going to die. Is there a real issue with climate change? Possibly. I'm not saying that there isn't one. But is it, are we all going to die if the Democrats don't win the next election? Are we all going to die from climate change? No. Okay. Is degrowth the answer to climate change? No. The answer is fusion energy. The answer is a socialist system where resources are used rationally in a strategic long-term way, so we can make sure that we're, and overcoming the waste of the irrational use of resources in the market. That's the answer, right? The answer is getting to a higher energy source like fusion energy. The answer is getting over the irrational use of resources in the capitalist system. And so there's no reason to be pessimistic about it. The pessimism is coming from folks who want to use the climate crisis to push degrowth, and they want to use degrowth, and they want to use degrowth methods to stabilize capitalism. And they're using the climate crisis as an excuse to do so. But it's about stabilizing capitalism. All right. What should I keep in mind when joining a communist party? Here's what I'll say, right? And I'll just put this out there. If the group is holding you back, get out. That's my advice, right? I would join a group that is trying to help you maximize your contribution. I would join an organization, an anti-imperialist, socialist, communist organization that wants you to make a big contribution. That wants, if they want you to have a big YouTube channel, they want you to write some books, and they may want to work with you to make sure what you do is in line with their political line. They may want to educate you so that you do it in the proper way, but make sure the organization wants you to succeed, because so many of the organizations out there are just the ego trip of one or two people, and the main thing that they do is hold other people back. The main thing that they do is go around the group saying, no, you're not allowed to do that. I'm the important one. These groups are all one person's ego trip. It's one person's little place to feel that they're special and tell everyone else they're inferior, right? And if you are in a group that starts to be like that, and it's one thing, now they, part of democratic centralism, which is part of the Leninist culture, is making sure what you put out is in line with the party line. That's fine. And it may be that you need more education on the topics. They want to help you learn about the topics so you can do a better job. But if you get the sense that the group is really just there to glorify a few people's ego trip, get the hell out of there. Right? Because that's what a lot of these groups are. It's just the ego trip of one or two people. And those people go around holding back other people. And if you're in a situation like that, get out. Get out as fast as you can. That's my advice to you. Right? You do not want to be in a situation where the organization is preventing you from making a contribution to the struggle, because I've seen that so many times. Right? People that are very full of ideas and all of that, they join a communist group and the group just suppresses them. And then after a year or two, they realize the group isn't going anywhere, and then they're completely burned out on politics. So if you join an organization and they are suppressing you and telling you not to make YouTube videos, telling you not to write articles, telling you not to make the contribution that you want to make, if their message to you is not, here's how you can do it and be more effective, or here's how we can help you do it, their message is, don't do it. Be in awe of the great leader. Get the hell out of there. That's my advice. And I hope that's helpful. Is it true that communism starved millions of people in Russia and China? No. It's true that before the communists came in, there was starvation all the time. And in both Russia and China, communists built the modern agricultural systems. Communists brought tractors to the countryside. Communists electrified the countries. Communists are the ones that are responsible for making Russia and China modern industrial countries. And before the communists came, people were starving all the time. There was a famine in the USSR in the early 1930s. No one denies that. There was a famine in China in the early 1960s. No one denies that. But it's the communists that cured the country of having famines that they had all the time before the communists came to power. So, and it's infuriating to me. They're like, oh, there was this famine one time. Well, there was famines all the time before the communists showed up, and the communists cured the famines. Now, maybe the communists didn't do it as effectively as they could have. Maybe along the way to curing the famines, there was a problem during the time of collectivization, during the Great Leap Forward. But communists cured the goddamn famines, right? The argument that communists starve people, that would be like saying, Say there's someone who's a drug addict for 20 years and they go to rehab, and in rehab, they relapse, they start using drugs again, and then they go back to rehab and they never use drugs again. If you look at that and you say, wow, drug addiction was caused by rehab. How does that make any fucking sense? That doesn't make any fucking sense. They were a drug addict for 20 years beforehand. They went to rehab and rehab was trying to fix it. Didn't work. They relapsed, but then they went back and it actually did fix it. And you're saying that it's rehab that caused them to be a drug addict? That doesn't even make any sense. That's what they're saying. There was starvation all the time before the communists came in. The communists came in and they started curing the starvation, and they had a problem. There was some starvation, and then they fixed it, and then there's never been starvation ever again. So communism caused starvation. No, wrong. And it is just obvious as day that that's not the case of what happened, right? I'm trying to think of another analogy to make, but it's like there's just so many things wrong with this claim, and I see it everywhere all the time. Oh, communism killed all these people. It starves countries. No, it doesn't starve countries. Countries were starving before the communists came in, and then the communists cure it. Maybe they don't cure it as effectively. Maybe the system that they build to cure it has problems, and there's a relapse of starvation. But they're the ones that cured starvation in both of those countries. These are facts, right? And when they're going, communism starves people. No, it doesn't. Communism builds modern agricultural systems. Communism brings tractors to countrysides. Communism electrifies countries. So yeah, and it's infuriating to me. And no one has the courage to say what I just said, right? Because I have debunked this so many times by saying this, but most of the socialists that they find don't have the courage or the knowledge to say what I just said. Easily debunked. Yeah, there you go. Biden promised to end the war in Yemen, and he did the opposite. He got America into it. And I saw the clip of Joy. I don't have it here tonight, but yeah. I mean, look, it looks to me like Kamala Harris is going to be on the ticket. Biden is going to be the nominee. They are trying to shove a Kamala Harris presidency down our throats. The only way Kamala Harris can ever be president is if Joe Biden gets reelected and is so out of it that he steps down or has a heart attack or something. They want Kamala Harris to be president because she's insane, because they know how to push her buttons, because she's a deranged sociopath. She's deranged. She's not a sociopath. She's a narcissist. And she's deranged, and they know exactly how to push her buttons, and she's really dangerous. And they know exactly how to push her buttons. And I mean, the Democrats are going to have to all pretend they think Biden's in great shape, but he ain't. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Oy. The Roosevelt administration put into policies to alleviate suffering caused the Depression. Why no such response by capitalist governments today? Because Roosevelt was dealing with a well-organized mass communist movement. 1934 was a year of revolutionary uprising in this country. 1934, the dock workers of San Francisco went on strike, shut down San Francisco. The truck drivers of Minneapolis went on strike, shut down Minneapolis. The auto light workers of Toledo, Ohio went on strike and shut down Toledo, Ohio. All of the South had waves of sharecropper strikes in 1934. In the summer of 1934, the working class were struggling, and there were mass uprisings. And those uprisings were all aligned with the Soviet Union. And so in those circumstances, Roosevelt was facing the possibility of a military coup against him. It was revealed in congressional records, the business plot. They were trying to overthrow Roosevelt. There was an attempted coup against him. And so Roosevelt realized the only way he could stay in power was entering a strategic alliance with the communists and with the labor movement. So Roosevelt started enacting policies that would benefit working class people, so they would vote for him, that would embolden the labor unions and the labor movement because they would support him. There was a division in the ruling class. There was a huge upsurge of working class organizing and power, and that is why you saw the response that happened during those years. And we don't have that now. Number one, we don't have a wave of working class resistance. Rioting in the street is not the same as resistance because you're not demanding things. You're not building working class power, right? People just going out and breaking things because they're mad. I mean, not that it doesn't have its place to raise awareness about police brutality and stuff, but that's not the same thing. right? What they were doing in San Francisco with the dock workers, Minneapolis with the truckers, Toledo, Ohio, and in South Carolina and elsewhere. 1934 was an upsurge of working class power, and the Soviet Union was behind it. And there was a division in the ruling class, and that led to an opening. We don't have that situation today, right? In the 1930s, we had a huge communist party that was very much the center of working class resistance, that was aligned with the Soviet Union, that had a booming economy. Very different situation. All right. I sometimes think that most people believe in socialism, but they are afraid of them being persecuted, or if they are in the country, they fear they'll get sanctioned, blockaded, or invaded. You're talking about in Argentina? That's interesting, right? People believe in socialism. They just think the United States will retaliate against them. That's very interesting. I mean, I can't speak to Argentina. Peronism as a tradition has a very socialist edge to it. Juan Perón loved Che Guevara. He loved Fidel Castro. He believed in the government taking action to benefit the working class. So there we go. There we go. Do you believe in objective morality, non-religious? Well, objective morality would mean that something is right or wrong in all circumstances, regardless. It's objective, just regardless of any circumstances. And I don't think that, right? I mean, killing, you could say killing is wrong, but what if someone's trying to kill you and say you kill in self-defense, right? I mean, there's many situations where people say, well, there's some things that are just always wrong. Well, there are exceptions you can think of where that would be the ethical choice to take, right? I and non-religious, I am religious. I'm a Christian, right? So I am a Christian. So there you go. All right. A new watcher. Thank you for your educational content, Mr. Moppin. Well, thank you. And I hope you stick around. I hope you like what you see. Ask any questions. We are something special here. Let me just put it that way. Our community is something unique, right? We have something really, really special. I hope you join us. I hope you're part of what we do, and stick around and bring your friends, and we just keep going, right? This is going to be live stream number 677. So we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep going. We're the best show in town that you've never heard of. So there you go. The United Auto Workers calls for a ceasefire while endorsing sellout Biden. Well, yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I mean, there's two sides to that, right? So, that shows that a major labor union that supports the Democratic Party doesn't support Israel. That's huge. That's amazing. That's a great thing. But it also shows that, that they are very much beholden to the Democratic Party, which they are. I mean, the UAW, all the labor unions are basically beholden to the Democratic Party. So that's not a big shocker either. But the fact that they called for a ceasefire and condemned Israel, that's big. And it shows they're breaking with Biden's foreign policy. So it's mixed. You know what I mean? I wish that, yes, their critique of Biden and his foreign policy would lead them to, to move toward breaking with the Democratic Party. But where are they going to go, right? Are they going to endorse the Socialist Party? Oh, wait, we don't have one, right? Are they going to endorse the Republicans, right? Our two-party system is like a trap. And the labor unions are not led by revolutionary forces. They're led by reformists and corrupt labor bureaucrats mostly. So, the UAW banned communists in the 1950s, and they began cooperating with the CIA. You can read about the Solidarity Center, which is the CIA's labor union operations. The UAW actually plays more of an international role, right? A lot of their staffers don't do anything with auto workers. They're going around the world doing CIA work, and collecting information on communist trade unionists for the CIA and stuff like that. You can read about all of that. That's the situation. Yes, I'm not shocked. I'm glad they condemned the ceasefire, though, but, not shocked. Can Putin restore communism in Russia? Can the government serve as a vanguard party? Well, the Soviet Union's never coming back, right? Something like the Soviet Union. Countries in that part of the world kind of merging together, that may be on the agenda at some point. But the Soviet way of doing things, it had its problems. Everybody knew in the 80s the Soviet Union needed reform. They needed to adjust their system in order to be more effective. Unfortunately, it had become so rigid, it couldn't bend, so it broke, right? And that by bringing in Gorbachev and Glasnost and Perestroika led to the Soviet Union just coming apart. But the Soviet Union is not coming back. But Russia's economy is heavily state-run at this point, right? It's centered around two state-run oil company, a state-run oil company, two state-run energy companies, state-run oil company, and a state Gazprom, a state-run natural gas company, and Gazprom and Rosneft, a state-run oil company. So Russia's economy is very state-run. It's aligned. Look, when people get into all of this, is Russia still communist? Clearly not. It's not led by a communist party. They don't espouse the Marxist ideology. They are Russian Orthodox Christians. But the Communist Party is a major political party. They've still got monuments to Marx and Lenin and stuff all up over the country. They're very proud of defeating the Nazis in World War II. The Soviet Union is very much part of their heritage that they're not ashamed of. They say the fall of the Soviet Union was a disaster because it was, economically speaking. And their allies are all the communists, right? They're aligned with the communists in China. They're aligned with the communists in North Korea. They just gave a great press conference today about how they're very proud to work with Iran and North Korea. They're aligned with Venezuela. They just built a new statue of Fidel Castro. They're aligned with Vietnam. So what if Russia was run by a communist government? What would be different? Maybe they would talk differently, right? They give Marxist-Leninist speeches rather than, conservative nationalist speeches. Okay. But at this point, Russia's economy is so heavily tied in with communist countries. It's so heavily locked out of the Western imperialist system, right? They are proud of their legacy as the Soviet Union, right? They're defending that legacy in Ukraine against people who tear down World War II memorials. I mean, it's like, sitting there and going, well, Russia's not communist. Who cares, right? I mean, it's almost like, it's like, why bring that up, right? It's this weird thing. And there is this weird demand in communist circles now, usually not coming from good people. Do you think Russia's communist? Brian Becker of the PSL, endless leaps and backflips and, oh my God, denunciations of Putin for criticizing Lenin and all this stuff. And it's all performative. He's pandering to pro-imperialist people, right? Russia is not the Soviet Union anymore. They don't have the Soviet system. In the 1990s, they had free market capitalism. Then they implemented, state control, and they stabilized the economy. But the people that like demand, you don't think Russia's communist, do you? Say Russia's bad. Say Russia's bad. I mean, Russia has problems just like any other country. But this performative, it's really, you got to cut that out, right? If you're a serious anti-imperialist, you realize that Russia not being communist doesn't fucking matter. Right? It's like a side question, right? It's not a relevant point, right? And the people that always begin every conversation with Russia's capitalist, just so you know, Russia's not communist anymore. Russia's bad. It's capitalist. They're pandering to pro-imperialist people. That's all that is. Okay. And, it might be an intellectual point of discussion. I've heard different theories about Russia. People argue Russia is a Bonapartist economy. People say that Russia is like a weird class collaborationist, anti-imperialist thing, and that there's sectors of the old Soviet economy that never got dismantled, and there's a capitalist sector that's been absorbed into it. Or there's different theories about Russia's economic basis. It's clearly not a free market country, all right? It's very much a government that is managing the economic affairs. But there are millionaires and billionaires and wealthy people in Russia. And, there are a lot of private companies that function to make profits. But if you sit there, this whole Russia's not get over it, right? You're not helping anybody, right? If you're in Russia and you wanted to talk that way, maybe that's one thing. But here in America, to be doing a big show about how Russia's not communist at a time when Russia is like the center of anti-imperialism right now, we are constantly being told to hate Russia, support Ukraine. And if that's what you're doing as a communist, is jumping up and down and telling everybody, just so you know, I don't think Russia's communist. You're not helping anybody. Okay. You're not, right? I mean, and this is something that, right? This is something that I just have zero tolerance for, is people trying to gain favor by denouncing the people that are on the right side. There's a certain school of thought that says if we just diss Stalin enough, if we just say Stalin bad enough, people will become socialists. No, they won't. Right? If people say, oh, we're just, if we just denounce China enough, people will be socialists. No, they won't. right? And there's this school of thought that's like, if we just do leaps and backflips to disassociate ourselves from the bad communists, then people will be communists. No, they won't. And it's a school of thought that it bothers me, right? And, you know, especially when these countries are being targeted by the imperialists, right? They lie endlessly about China. And rather than standing up to those lies, you go, oh, well, they're not communist. I'm a good communist. I'm not like them. That's not helpful, right? That's like seeing somebody, you know, seeing a member of your family getting beaten up. And you go, well, they're not, I don't know them. I don't know them, right? You know, that's Peter, right? That's Peter, right? What did Jesus Christ say to Peter? He said to Peter, you know, 3 times you will deny me, right? And what did Peter do? He said, I don't know him. I don't know him, right? 3 times Peter denied a relationship with Jesus. That was not a coward. That was not a brave thing he did. That didn't convince people. You know, did Peter think, oh, if I just denounce Jesus enough, then they'll listen to me and they'll get Jesus's ideas, SC, and that they won't know it's associated with that guy who's being crucified. No, right? You know, you don't do that, right? When people are under attack, when people are fighting to build socialism, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to have problems. When people are anti-imperialists, you don't denounce them. And you don't disassociate from them. And you don't, admit they're bad in order to gain credibility. It's childish. And it's cowardly. And it means you're a backstabber. It means you're a traitor. It means you're not somebody who stands on their principles. So, you know, you just don't do it, right? I see that as cowering in the face of the power structure. And I see it as not helpful, right? If you want to sit down over coffee and we'll have an objective conversation about Russia's economy and whether or not they're socialist, fine. But if every conversation about the war in Ukraine begins with this crazy performative, we don't like Putin, we don't like Russia, Russia corrupt, shut up. Just shut up. And that's what, you know, Noam Chomsky, he began his speech. They had him in a church in D.C., and he began his speech by saying, we are here to denounce Vladimir Putin, and got a standing ovation. Oh, wow, so great. That's great. It took such courage to denounce Vladimir Putin in Washington, D.C. No one's ever done that before. Great for you, Noam. Such courage. You know, Russia is right in Ukraine, right? And what they're fighting over in Ukraine is the fight over, was the Soviet Union right in World War II? So denouncing or distancing yourself from Russia is a cowardly thing to do. It doesn't objectively help or serve the cause of anti-imperialism in any fucking way. All right. So don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay. And if you want to sit down and talk to me over coffee, or we can discuss different aspects of the Russian economy and what they might be, despite having heavy state control, but also having a capitalist class and having been through a counter-revolution, if you want to sit there and talk about that with me sometime as friends, let's do it. But when we're talking before the world, we say Russia is right. Russia is right. The Azov battalion and Zelensky and the Kiev regime installed by NATO is wrong. Russia is defending the legacy of the Soviet Union. Russia is fighting the imperialists. Russia is the best friend that Venezuela ever had, the best friend that North Korea ever had, the best friend China ever had, the best friend that Cuba ever had. So that's what we're going to say. And that's all we need to say before the world. So there we go. And thank you, Herb Bryant. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. You know, and like I said, you know, anything people can do, it's not just a question of getting me talking. It also supports the work we do here. I don't want this to turn into PBS where I'm constantly, you know, soliciting support, but I'm just telling you all, I have to get into a better situation financially here, because this is, you know, if I wasn't paying astronomical rent for this apartment, it wouldn't be the case, but it is the case. So, you know, but part of having this amazing apartment is that I can stream for you a lot, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to stream for you as much as I can. That is my commitment to you. There will be as much streaming as I can manage. All right. The definition of sales is transference of emotion. Well, transference, are you meaning transference in the Freudian sense? Or are you saying like you get people to be emotional? Well, I don't know. I think some people shop rationally. right? A lot of people, before they buy a car, they investigate different cars and they look at different, not all sales are done emotionally. But yes, maybe the art of being a salesman is appealing to people's emotions, etc. But I think a lot of people buy in an intellectual way. I think a lot of people who, especially if they buy stocks or they buy real estate, they're not doing it in a emotional way. They're doing it in a strategic way. I don't think you're necessarily right there, but yes, a lot of people do buy or purchase things in an emotional rather than rational way. That is true. All right. I'm in Iceland, Europe. Is there a way to open a local chapter of CPI here? Sure. Yeah. Maybe start a CPI supporting organization in Iceland, or maybe sign up and start attending our Zoom calls from Iceland. We have some people that are members internationally that join our Zoom calls. We appreciate any support we can get. So yeah, you can join on our website, or you can start your own organization and be in touch with us. There's been various people in Australia, in Scotland, and in Britain, and in other parts of the world that have talked about forming CPI aligned groups. Yeah, we're all for that. Join, become part of it, be part of our community. We need more members. If you like our books, anything you can do. Thoughts on the situation in Texas? Everyone's been talking about it. Well, look, I'm generally of the opinion that the Trump faction is slightly better, as bad as they are. But on this issue, I'm having a hard time seeing how they're better, right? The idea that we want to see immigrants cut up by barbed wire. Look, we all need to recognize that the situation on the border is not good, and it's not. Okay, so anyone who tries to tell you, oh, this is the American dream, they're coming to a new country, this is not good. The fact that people can't stay in their own countries, the fact that they're risking their lives to try and cross the border, the fact that they find dead bodies every day along the U.S. border, they find 5 or 6 dead bodies there's a big problem on the border, okay? And the right wing, they just go, oh, they're rapists, they're just being xenophobic. Oh, the foreigners are coming, keep them out. Well, that's not helpful. The left wing, though, they don't have an answer. What is their answer? Their answer is, oh, it's great. No, it's not great. It is not great. Mass migration is a global crisis. People are dying in the Mediterranean. People are dying on the border. People can't live in their own country. And it's not a good situation. The answer to the problem at the Mexican border is economic development. The United States needs to team up with China and Mexico and Nicaragua, and we need an economic corridor of development to give people jobs so they don't join drug cartels, to electrify the communities in Central America that don't have electricity, to bring schools and healthcare education. That is the way that you stop the crisis of mass migration. The only answer is economic development, something like what China's doing with the Belt and Road. But I really don't like the way Republicans talk. I also don't like what Democrats have to say, because it's not an answer. It's not an answer. And that's what worries me, because I think Trump is slightly better. But if he takes office on a platform of them immigrants are coming, let's cut them up with barbed wire, I don't like that answer. That's not a good answer either. Okay. And, this is, I don't like that situation on the border. Honestly, I just don't like it. It's a trap. Right. And it's like, there's no good answer. The real answer is economic development, which of course is not an option. Right. So there you go. All righty. Some good news. China's HTR PM reactor at Shido is the first of Generation 5. It'll be operating commercially. That's great. That is great. Fusion energy is the future. Nuclear power. I am all for nuclear power. I am pro-nuclear power. And fusion is the next stage after nuclear. And yeah, that's great. China is leading the world, right? And the answer to climate change is moving up beyond fossil fuels, not moving down, right? And that's why the Party of Socialism and Liberation, their platform, they want to de-electrify the country. They want to destroy the power grid. It says in there they would immediately change every fossil fuel energy source in the country to a windmill or a solar panel. Yeah, that means that America has maybe a third of the electricity it has. Basically means all the rural areas lose their electricity. That's a genocidal policy, and that's in the PSL platform, right? We're going to publish something. At some point, I'm going to get on here and critique PSL thoroughly, but I mean, they are running on a degrowth Malthusian platform, right? You know, I mean, they're basically running on a platform of you'll own nothing and be happy about it. You won't have electricity and be happy about it. You'll eat bugs and like it. You know, that's sickening. Sickening. All right. At one point, Juan Perón supported Castro and claimed that he wasn't a communist. Fidel is as communist as I am. Rather, he's judicialist. Yeah, Juan Perón was all over the place. Peronism is politically all over the place, right? There, even while he was alive, there were left Peronists and right Peronists who fought against each other. You know, Peronism is politically all over the place, always has been. But there is a socialistic interpretation of it. There's also kind of a nationalistic interpretation of it as well. So yeah, there you go. All right, folks, I'm going to put on the closing music and I'm going to call it a night, but I'll be back.
Upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.